Abandoned by her husband and forced to flee with their 3 children because of his debts, a mother found herself in despair. Little did she imagine that the move to a forgotten family shack would change everything. While rummaging through the old things there, she found something unexpected. What started as a struggle for survival ended up transforming her life in unimaginable ways. Now, what her ex-husband never knew is that, by expelling her from her own home, he set her on the path to becoming a millionaire. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is the Linda's Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story. Helena arrived home exhausted, her body heavy after yet another interminable workday. Her 3 children spent part of the day at school, and she had chosen a shift that started at dawn, just so she could return in time to take care of them. Fatigue was a constant companion, but it was the only way she had found to manage everything. She had built a life together with her husband Alfonso. He was an ordinary man, always considered a good partner, until the moment he had to retire due to disability. Chronic pain in his shoulder and arm had forced him away from work. At first, Helena tried to be understanding, believing that his frustration of being at home made him more distant. But over time, Alfonso started spending his afternoons at a bar where there were hidden slot machines. He got involved in gambling, and gradually, the man she knew began to disappear. Helena noticed the change. Alfonso became increasingly absent, avoided conversations, and when he did speak, he seemed oblivious to his children's lives and hers. The 2 of them had fought for many years to acquire the house they lived in, and until recently, they had a nice car that symbolized years of hard work. However, months earlier, they had to sell it to pay off debts, trying to balance finances that were increasingly spiraling out of control. Despite everything, Helena tried to keep hope alive. She thought of her children and their future. Deep down, she still believed that Alfonso could change, that the man she knew was somewhere inside, just lost. She had tried to talk, sought help, but it seemed like all the effort was coming solely from her. He, on the other hand, was sinking deeper and deeper into his own problems, leaving Helena to fight alone. Alfonso would leave the house without giving any explanations and disappear for a few days. Helena was losing her patience. She knew that he wasn't always like this, that the man she had married wasn't this person who left everything behind. Maybe it was the accumulated frustrations, the addiction to gambling, the escape into drinking, but somehow she still hoped for a change. Relatives and friends commented on the situation, some with pity, others with concern. To them, it was clear that Helena was carrying the weight of everything alone. He didn't help with the children, didn't contribute to the expenses. For Helena, the situation was reaching its limit. Even so, she didn't know that the storm was about to break over her. Alfonso had taken off again days ago. Helena, tired and overwhelmed, began seriously thinking about divorce. But something held her back from making that decision. She hesitated, even with her heart exhausted. That afternoon, something was definitely different. Helena entered the house, exhausted after yet another day of work. With a sigh of frustration, she threw herself onto the sofa, her head throbbing with worries that had been plaguing her for months. Suddenly, a firm knock on the door made her jump. She got up quickly, thinking for a second that maybe it was Alfonso returning. When she opened the door, however, she found herself facing a formal-looking man holding a thick envelope in one hand. "Mrs. Helena?" the man asked, and she nodded, confused. "I'm here to deliver the summons. The property where you reside is under foreclosure. You have until the end of the week to vacate the house," he explained bluntly. Helena felt her world crumble. She stood paralyzed, those heavy papers in her trembling hands. She struggled to open the envelope and began to read the eviction notice. The house they lived in, where they raised their children, was mortgaged by Alfonso without her knowledge. The debts he had incurred from gambling had reached their limit. It wasn't just financial debts. Alfonso had gotten involved with dangerous people, and now there was no more time. Alfonso's absences, the sleepless nights, the flimsy excuses. It all made sense now. He wasn't just lost in gambling and drinking. He was trapped in a much worse cycle. Helena felt her chest tighten, a rising knot of anger and despair. How could he hide something so serious? After the court officer left, she broke down in tears. Alfonso had been hiding all the judicial notices, burying her in lies while destroying their life. The deadline had passed, and now the house would be taken. There was nothing more to be done. She looked around, the toys scattered on the floor, the family photos on the shelves. How would she tell the children that in a few days they would lose their home? Running away seemed to be the only option. At this point, she didn't want anything to do with Alfonso. An intense anger and sadness consumed her. She couldn't risk staying and waiting for the worst. Without hesitating, she picked up the phone and called her sister, the only person who could help her at that moment. "I need a place to stay. Just for a while," she said with a choked voice. Her sister Marie agreed immediately. Knowing that it was no longer safe to stay, Helena began packing the essential belongings. Before the week was over, she and her children would leave behind the house they had fought so hard to acquire, now lost to debts and the chaos Alfonso had created. She knew she needed to act quickly to keep her family safe, but the future was an uncertain and frightening shadow. She packed everything swiftly, sold some furniture and appliances to raise some money, along with an amount she had saved without her husband's knowledge. During that week, Alfonso did not appear. He vanished, not answering phone calls, without explanations. His absence became a cutting silence, but over time she realized it was for the best. It was time to take charge of her life and protect her children from an uncertain future. Alfonso had sunk into a dirty world of debts and dangerous bets, and she would not allow him to drag her family into the same abyss. Helena decided that the best course of action was to go to the town where her sister lived. It was the place where she had spent her childhood, and the familiarity brought a bit of comfort amidst the chaos. Her sister Marie was newly married and lived with her husband in a small, cozy apartment. Although the reception had been warm, Helena knew they couldn't stay there for long. 3 children in the home of newlyweds was not an ideal situation, and she felt the weight of responsibility increasing every day. Marie deeply loved her sister Helena and felt a constant pain seeing the difficult situation she and her nephews were facing. Despite her own limited resources, she did her best to prepare nutritious meals, offer a cozy corner, and alleviate some of the burden Helena carried. Knowing that Helena had initiated the divorce process with Alfonso, Marie asked her sister to stay at her home until the situation was resolved. She wanted to be a constant support, allowing Helena to concentrate on solving one problem at a time without the additional worry of immediately finding a new home. In the first weeks, Helena tried not to think about the future, but reality soon hit her. She needed to find a solution for her and her children. She couldn't keep relying on Marie's generosity, despite her sister having offered help without hesitation. The divorce process proceeded surprisingly smoothly. When Alfonso was summoned to appear, he raised no objections. He showed up in court and signed all the documents without a fight or argument. The resignation in his behavior made it clear that he knew what he had done was unjustifiable and unforgivable. With the legal situation underway, Helena felt a mixture of relief and growing urgency. She knew she needed a fresh start, a place where she could rebuild her life away from the shadows of Alfonso. Knowing she could no longer stay at her sister's house, she decided to begin her search for a new place to start over, despite her sister's insistent pleas for her to stay. One day, her sister Marie mentioned an old cottage that had belonged to their late aunt and had been left to them as an inheritance. The place had become a storage for old junk, and no one in the family was interested in living there or buying it. Over time, the cottage had been forgotten, and no one attributed any value to it. Helena pondered over it, and perhaps it was the only chance to provide a stable home for her children. She hesitated to accept immediately, but seeing the need to move forward, she gave it a chance. She went there with the kids, and despite the worn-out state of the house, she saw the potential for a simple and peaceful home. The place was small, surrounded by old trees, and had an abandoned garden that she imagined could be beautiful again one day. The roof creaked, and the floor was full of marks of time, but there was something comforting in the simplicity of the place. Helena saw there the possibility of a new beginning, a place far from it all where she could reconnect with her children and start her life anew. The children, to their surprise, were excited about the idea of living in a new house, even though it was so old and dusty. They ran from one side to the other, exploring every corner and the yard as if that small country house were a magical castle. For them, the absence of Alfonso, their father, seemed to make no difference. He had become so distant and absent from their lives that the move, however drastic it was, did not seem to affect them. This gave Helena a sense of relief and a spark of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time. In the first few days, Helena dedicated herself to tidying up the place. Meanwhile, her children stayed with her sister, Marie. While organising a small room, Helena found an old piece of furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. She decided to move it to clean behind it. As she pulled the furniture away, she noticed that a piece of the floor was loose. The aged and worn wood was partially misaligned, revealing a small opening. Carefully, Helena removed the wood from the floor and discovered a box hidden beneath it. The box was covered in dust but appeared to be well preserved. Curious, Helena pulled it out and opened it. Inside, she found a variety of old coins and some jewellery, all well wrapped and appearing to have been stored for a long time. Initially, Helena did not know the value of the items. She then decided to research on the internet about the coins she found. As she explored the websites, she began to come across information about extremely valuable and expensive collectible items. Each search left her more shocked, especially when she found an article that described coins and jewellery similar to those she had found, mentioning their high market value and the interest of collectors. At first, she could hardly believe it. The discovery seemed surreal. The box hidden under the old floor could, in fact, contain a fortune. With a mixture of anxiety and hope, Helena decided to take the items to a specialist to get an accurate appraisal, if the online estimates were correct. With her heart racing, Helena watched as the specialist examined the pieces with meticulous care, using a magnifying glass and a precision scale. After a long analysis, the appraiser confirmed. The coins truly had significant value, and the jewellery also stood out as rare and precious items. "Mrs. Helena," said the specialist with a serious expression, "the coins and jewellery you found are from an extremely rare and valuable collection. Based on their condition and rarity, the total value could easily exceed millions of dollars." Helena's heart beat faster. The reality of the situation seemed surreal. She called Marie, her voice choked with emotion. "Marie, you won't believe what I found," Helena said, almost out of breath. "The coins and jewellery are incredibly valuable. We can really change our lives with this." Marie was equally surprised and excited. From those exciting days onward, they began to organise the necessary documentation to sell the items and ensure the transaction was done safely and legally. Relief and hope began to fill the void that the difficult situation had left in her heart. Now, with financial security in sight, Helena prepared for a new beginning, grateful for the unexpected twist that brought a ray of hope to her life and that of her children. After the turmoil of selling the jewellery and coins, Helena and Marie dedicated themselves to organising their new life. Helena was determined to create a stable environment for her children and use the money wisely. With the help of Marie and the new financial fund, Helena managed to pay off all the debts that had plagued her life for months. She bought a house where she could live with her children, opting to rebuild her life in the city where they were, near her sister. The move to the new house was an emotional milestone. Helena, with tears of gratitude and relief, watched her children exploring their new rooms. They were delighted with the space and the little surprises Helena had prepared for each of them. The house was filled with laughter, and the feeling of a new beginning was tangible. Meanwhile, Helena still needed to face remnants of her old life. There were divorce documents that needed to be signed, forcing her to deal with memories she preferred to leave behind. Alfonso, on the other hand, remained mired in a precarious situation, accumulating debts and getting involved in legal troubles. Although there was no longer direct contact between them, news of his difficulties still reached her, causing inevitable emotional strain. However, Helena remained resolute and focused, reminding herself that the consequences of Alfonso's actions were his responsibility, not hers. Helena resumed her studies in something she always loved, but had abandoned when she got married. She invested the extra money from the jewellery and decided to focus on a new field of study, which brought her more stability and satisfaction, allowing her to reconnect with her passions. At an important event for Helena, the children's school organised a special day for parents and students. Helena, now with a renewed sparkle in her eyes, accompanied her children to school, proud of the progress they had made. She spoke with the teachers, made friends with other parents, and for the first time in a long while allowed herself to relax and enjoy the company of others. At home, the transformation was visible. The children were happy and well-adjusted. Marie, who had become a sort of mentor and source of support for Helena, continued to help her adapt to the new life. They often met to share moments and help each other, further strengthening the family bond. On a quiet night, as the family gathered for dinner in their new home, Helena reflected on her journey. She looked around and saw the smiles of her children, who were now safe and happy. The suffering and difficulties they had faced had been overcome, and what remained was a promising future. She knew that life would not be perfect and that new challenges would arise, but she was ready to face them with the courage and determination she had developed. The painful past had become a part of her story, but it did not define her. Helena had found strength where there seemed to be no hope and had created a new beginning for herself and her children. As she watched the kids playing and laughing, Helena felt a wave of gratitude and fulfillment. The unexpected fortune had changed their lives, but the true treasure was in the inner strength she discovered and the family that had fought alongside her. The house, now vibrant and full of life, symbolized not just survival, but the resilience and love that helped her start over. Self-love and the courage to move forward can transform lives. Sometimes life pushes us away from something only to bring us closer to what truly matters. And so, Helena and her children continued to build a new and meaningful life, one day at a time, with light hearts and renewed hope. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.